Greetings, scholars. Miss Gallagher here. This is Supporters of War 2.06, the American Revolutionary War. Many people participated in the Revolutionary War. Women, slaves, freedmen, and Native Americans all joined in to lend a hand. In this lesson, you will learn more about their contributions during the American Revolution. The objective is to investigate the role various groups played during the American Revolution. What do I submit? 2 to 3 sentences describing how African Americans contributed to the war effort and how these contributions impacted the outcome of the Revolutionary War. Next, write 2 or 3 sentences with the same information about Native Americans. And third, write 2 or 3 sentences with the same information about women. Let's unpack the question. The question is actually asking you 2 things. Many students will just write the contribution and forget that it's also asking you for how the contribution impacted the outcome of the war. You're going to find that you will also find the significance of the contribution, and that is acceptable as well. This assignment lends itself to a 2-column format. Successful readers often take notes while they're reading. I recommend a 2-column organizer. The left side would be the contributions, and the right side would be the impact on the war and/or the significance of the contributions. Here's your 2 columns. These are excerpts from the online lessons. It is by no means the entirety of the lesson. These are just some highlights to help you get an idea of what we are looking for. African Americans fought on both sides of the American Revolution. At the beginning of the war, Britain appealed to enslaved persons to join the British war efforts. Many were promised their freedom for fighting for the British. African Americans fought for the American side as well. As many as 5,000 African American freedmen and enslaved persons joined the Continental Army. Some fought because they believed in the cause, while others fought because they were paid. Some escaped from slavery and joined the fighting, while others fought in exchange for their freedom. Some African Americans used their experience as enslaved persons to write about freedom during this time period. Wheatley, an African American enslaved person, was a strong supporter of the Revolution. She wrote poems about slavery and freedom, which won her international fame. African Americans also contributed to the war by producing food for the Continental Army from the fields they farmed. So your job was to fill in your 2 columns. So if you'd like to pause now and take a moment to fill something in your 2 columns, I'm moving to the next slide. I found that a contribution was that they fought for both sides, and the impact was it proved how much they were willing to sacrifice their freedom. That's an inference that I made as a reader, because the author of this lesson wrote that the African Americans were motivated by gaining freedom, and this proved how much they were willing to sacrifice for their freedom. Production of food, the impact was it kept the Continental Army fed, and the African American enslaved persons used their experience to write about freedom and support the Revolution. Impact, they were influencers. They promoted American independence and freedom. The Native Americans believed that if the British won the war, the British would keep Americans off their land. The British were able to raid the lands along the Appalachian Mountains. These raids scattered American forces and helped the British achieve victories. The author is referring to the Appalachian Mountains, which are located on this line between the two colors. One result of the Native Americans fighting in the American Revolution was the destruction of the Iroquois Confederacy. The Iroquois Confederacy was created in the 1400s to keep peace between the 5 largest tribes near the Great Lakes, which are located here on the map. 5 Great Lakes. Debates over which side to take during the American Revolution divided the Iroquois Confederacy as members fought each other. Another result was the loss of Native American land. After the American victory, settlers began moving west to lands forbidden by the British Proclamation of 1763. Again, take a moment to write down what you think the contributions were and possible impact or significance. Pause here if you'd like to try it on your own first, and we're moving on. I found that the impact and or significance was the destruction of the Iroquois Confederacy and the loss of Native American land. Women in the American Revolution were instrumental. They contributed to the war effort in many ways. They organized protests, assisted the military on the battlefield, and managed households and businesses while their husbands were at war. There's a lot more in the lesson, which will give you plenty of textual evidence to use in your sentences. In the end, scholars, your job is to evaluate the contribution of the supporters. When you get ready to do your assignment, you will explain the significance of the contributions that African Americans, Native Americans, and women made to the American Revolution. You will describe how each group contributed and explain how these contributions impacted the war. Always be sure that your work is written in complete sentences using your own words. Your assignment must include the following: the same 2 or 3 sentences for each group. We talked about this before. You'll also find it on the activity page in your lessons. Always click on the grading rubric. It's at the bottom of every activity. And here's an excerpt from that. What we're looking for are well-written descriptions of the contributions to the war effort by African Americans, Native Americans, and women. Well-written explanations of the significance of the contributions of African Americans, Native Americans, and women. The work is well organized, easy to read and comprehend. It has few spelling or grammar errors. Please contact me if you have questions. Thank you.